a Bleacher Report article came out sending a star from the Sunshine State over to the Lone Star State to join the San Antonio Spurs, and we break it down here on Spurs Digest with your host, Keenan Warner. And I want to thank every single person who is part of the 1,000 plus who have subscribed to the channel. We appreciate you helping us get to that 1K mark before the season. It's even before October, which has been great. For the people who aren't, be part of the next 1,000. Be from the 1,000 to 2,000 range. Hit the subscribe button. Take a spur of the moment to get every Spurs moment. This is daily Spurs content. You guys get to enjoy, listen, debate, talk, all the great Spurs content that we have here as we love the Spurs like you do. But let's get into this big trade proposal. Jimmy Butler, Andy Bailey for Bleacher Report, trade packages for the Lakers, Warriors, and more. And that more does include the San Antonio Spurs. And before we get into what the trade exactly is, this is actually the odds. Miami's at plus 125 right now, so the odds are the most likely that he is going to stay in Miami moving forward. But these are the odds for the other teams. You've got Brooklyn there at plus 250. The Golden State Warriors, there have been trade talks heating up there in the rumor mill because, of course, off-season basketball, the rumor mill's going up. But fourth down there, you see the San Antonio Spurs at plus 800. So the Spurs have a chance at this, the betting odds say, and Vegas seems to do a pretty good job with a lot of this stuff. So plus 800 isn't even the craziest thing when it comes to these kind of trades. The trade itself would be Jimmy Butler for Keldon Johnson, Jeremy Sochan, Zach Collins, a 2025 first-round pick, and a 2031 first-round pick. So here's the thing. As we lead in with this trade and as we lead in with all of this stuff, I'm not going to mince words when I say I hate this trade. There is nothing good about this trade in my eyes. And we're going to break it down here as why in just a moment. This is clearly the guy, Jimmy Butler. He has been great. We're going to get into some more numbers here in a second, but he has been great in playoff runs for the Miami Heat. He has been a great ambassador of Miami, really taking it over from Dwayne Wade and being that Marquette guys, both of them, both guys who had to prove themselves a little bit. Obviously, Wade was a top pick, but he still had to prove himself that he was up on the echelon of Carmelo Anthony, who was amazing in that draft. As obviously LeBron James, who was one of the GOATs, he had to show, improve, and he was the one that won a championship first out of all of them. So he encompasses that. Jimmy Butler encompasses that grit, that Miami kind of native, that flow there. But do we want to sacrifice the youth for Jimmy? So that's Keldon Johnson, 24 years old. We understand the process he's been going through this summer, trying to get his body right, trying to get his mind right, trying to get everything right for him so he can actually be the best player he can be off the bench, because that's likely what's going to be his role. Jeremy Sochan, we put him at the point guard. We try to have him stretch out. Now he can play the proper role. Let's see if he actually does get him in that situation. But he can play the proper role now of being in that Aaron Gordon, being in that Dennis Rodman, as people like to say, being in that dunker spot, being in the guy who can play defense, be active, get those loose balls, the 50-50 balls and everything like that. Let's get him there. Obviously, Zach Collins is the guy who is okay. Like, I like the fact that we have Zach Collins on this roster because the front court depth isn't really much there. It's Wemby. It is Sochan, who is a little smaller. Depending on what they want with Harrison Ingram, who's 6'8", but depending on if you want him in the G League in Austin or if they actually do want him on the roster in San Antonio. And then it's Zach Collins. And then from there, they're going to need to get a big. And multiple picks. Obviously, the picks aren't the biggest thing in the world because of the fact that we have a bevy of picks. But it's just like, do we want to sacrifice all of that? But San Antonio isn't a hotbed for free agents. It's not like LA has been. It's not like New York has been. It's not like Even Boston's done pretty well with free agents. Chicago from time to time. Like, a lot of these places have good free agency, even though Texas is a really good state to be in. Obviously, the no state income tax. You have things like that. It's a state that doesn't see much snow comparatively to Detroit or something along those lines, so the weather's going to be a higher aspect. But it's just like, they just don't attract that many, and I think it's because of the way the Spurs do business. They don't try to go big game hunting all the time like some of these other franchises. They'd rather build it organically, and it's worked well. I mean, 5 championships, how could it not work well there? But not a hotbed for talent there coming in, but they do have $27 million even after this trade would happen with the second apron, so not too big of a deal contractually with that. I want to show Jimmy Butler's numbers here. We got 20 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists last year. Shot 50% from the floor, 41% from 3. He did not play all games last year. Gotta love his picture because it's Jimmy. He likes to do whatever he wants to do. But Jimmy showed a little bit of his age and a little bit of a decline last year from what we really are used to with Jimmy Butler. But at peak Jimmy Butler, you're getting a guy who is tenacious defensively, offensively is not afraid of a moment. We've seen him go toe-to-toe with LeBron in the finals. We've seen him go play better than Jason Tatum in some conference finals. We've seen him outplay Jalen Brunson in a second-round series. We've seen him outplay Giannis in a series. I know Giannis was injured in that first round series, but that wasn't the only series we've seen Giannis. He's outplayed all of these great players, or at least played up to par with all the greats, and that's something that he has in him. Playoff Jimmy's a thing, even though he wants to say it's not a thing. Was Wemby's willingness to get up threes in volume, hitting cutters as the passer, good compliment for Butler on the offensive end. Then defensively, of course, Jimmy doesn't have that same step, but Wemby is the greater racer, so that's not really a big deal. But what I do want to get into are these right here. If you are a fan of Jimmy Butler to the San Antonio Spurs, this is why. In his Miami playoff career, they've been to 2 finals. They've lost both of them, unfortunately. They've been to, I believe, 4 conference finals. They lost, I think, 3 conference finals, actually, because they lost to Boston once. They beat Boston, which obviously got them to the finals 2 other times. So 25, 7, and 6, shooting 47% from the floor, 34 from 3, 83 from the line, and that doesn't showcase his 40-point games that he has, his 48-point game. I think he almost eclipsed 50 in the first round a couple years back. So Jimmy Butler has shown to be such a unique athlete where he just gets better and better. We've seen it like with Harden, the reverse, where Harden is MVP level. He is such a high caliber player in the regular season. Then in the playoffs, it just doesn't get to that point with him. He kind of has his bad games. He does play well at times, but he doesn't have his great games, as we saw Game 5 against Boston when he was with the Sixers. 41 points, great. Game 6 and Game 7, nowhere to be found because those big moments he just hasn't been great in. But the thing about it is they say this parting with such players won't hurt the Spurs' long-term plans. There's more here. Obviously, trading for 35, whatever. He hasn't played 65 games since 2018, 2019. That's the problem. But done with all of that. Now it's just, I need to get into this. It is a problem. Getting rid of Keldon Johnson, Jeremy Sochan, Zach Collins, and picks is a problem. That is a problem because you're mortgaging part of your future. We saw the Lakers do this with Anthony Davis, but there's a couple differences between that Anthony Davis trade and this Jimmy Butler trade. 1, Anthony Davis is much younger in this scenario. 2, you have a ready-made team with LeBron. That team was already about a 500 team prior to LeBron's ankle injury that year, and then you get Anthony Davis, but you trade away Lonzo, you trade away Brandon Ingram, you trade away Josh Hart, you trade away some picks. But what you have is LeBron James, who is still a top 5 player in the league at minimum at that point, plus Anthony Davis. So now you have 2 top 10 players, and you have LeBron at the back end of his prime, and you have Anthony Davis about to enter his prime. Of course that situation makes sense. And it's LeBron, so you know he's going for a championship. He's been there, he has done that. At that point, he is a 3-time champion. He's been to 9 finals at that point. So Of course, that one makes sense. That one makes 100% sense. This, I get Jimmy Butler has been to the finals 2 times. I get he's lost both times, but he has been to the finals. I understand what Jimmy Butler can add, but you're going to give up all of this depth for a guy who is not going to play 65 games. He's going to miss at least a quarter of the season. You have Chris Paul, who is going to miss a quarter of the season, and you're going to get rid of so much depth. I understand you'll still have Devin Vassell. You'll still have Wemby. You'll still have Harrison Barnes in this case. You still have Tre Jones in this case, but then you're going to have to hope to fill out the roster on the back end. And then if you're going to trade him, now you've got to sign him. He wants, in today's NBA, 3-year deal, $150 million, maybe $150 million, roughly around that. So he's going to be on the books for close to 50, or he's going to want to be at least. That's going to get you close to that first apron, which is okay. They have the money to do so, but you don't want to hamstring yourself. Well, you don't want to cap yourself at that Jimmy Butler. I get how good he is, and if he was 31, then I'd be all for it. But at 35, there's no need to do that. Don't trade these young pieces for that. They keep putting out these hypothetical trades that are trading away good young pieces who don't, for people who either don't fit the timeline or are not worthy of trading those young pieces. Keldon Johnson, Trey Murphy III, those are players that possibly are able to be in next year's free agent class. Add that to just this team alone. What are we doing here? You've got those guys. You guys get 3-and-D guys. Keldon Johnson's not as good of a defender as Trey Murphy, but you get 3-and-D guys who can go put the ball in the basket when need to. They can go get you 20 on a given night to go along with this. Let this young team develop. See what you can get for picks in the draft. Maybe you can land the Cooper flag pick, and if you can land the Cooper flag pick, then league's over. League's done. Wemby and Cooper are going to win 4 straight championships within their first 6 seasons. So, the league's over at that point, but there's no need to rush this process. They're already a team that's going to be competing for a play-in. They should be a 500 team. I know their wins are at 35.5. They should be a 500 team moving forward. There's no need to rush this process. Don't do something stupid. Don't do what the Knicks did with Carmelo and mortgage the future to try to get a guy who is obviously Melo at that point's not aging. Melo's in his prime, but they didn't do anything. They got to the second round once, and then now they're just hamstrung for a while until now they got Jalen Brunson fell in their lap on a now nice deal. You get Josh Hart, you get Dante DiVincenzo. They've done a great job. Mikal Bridges this year in the offseason. They've done a great job of filling out the roster, but the Knicks were a laughingstock for a while. Why? Bad ownership and bad moves. Don't put yourself to be in bad moves. You have Wemby, don't ruin it. Do not ruin it by trying to do too much too early. Let it build, let it grow. You will get pieces. Pieces will want to come to play with that guy. Let me know in the comments, though, if you think Jimmy Butler to the Spurs would be a great move, a bad move, or something that you don't want. I think that they need to just wait it out, let the timeline come, be active in this free agency, be active in the draft, and maybe then you can pair some trades together. Let's see what Stephon Castle can be. Let's see what Devin Vassell can ascend to. Let's see if Keldon Johnson does fit the roster off the bench this year. See if Jeremy Sochan does take that next step. And then next year, you can make these. It's not championship or bust for us this year. Not at all. But let me know in the comments what you guys think. Again, I want to appreciate you guys helping us get to 1K. And if you're not a part of that initial 1K, be a part of the initial 2K. We'll get there. We appreciate all of you guys. This was Spurs Digest with Keenan Warner, and we'll see you guys soon.